Here's a bit of fun. Let's look at using the slide and the fingers to play. So we're going to look at a couple of things here. One of them is just mixing up using the slide and the fingers, and the other one is the behind the slide technique, and we'll just get into the basics of that. That's something that I learned from David Tronzo. Sonny Landreth is a great exponent of this. Joey Landreth is a great exponent of it as well. There are lots of great players who do this. So let's dive in. So the first thing I suppose we want to address is why would we want to combine the slide with the fingers? The obvious thing is that it gives you a little bit more speed. The problem with being a one-finger guitarist, of course, is that it's easier to get around the fretboard with more than one finger. Technique-wise, throughout this, I'm going to emphasize using the first finger for the fretted note. You want to relax fingers 2 and 3. They want to be reasonably relaxed, and then you're using the slide for the other note. And what we need to be careful of is that we don't go too wide with the slide and try and cover too many frets with a fretted note and a slide note that's just too far apart. It's hard to keep in tune, it's hard to make it stay in tune, and it's going to put too much tension on this arm. So I'm in standard tuning. If I were to play C major with the slide, okay, there's just with the slide, or I could combine the fingers. So the reason I'm doing this in standard tuning is I hope it's easy to see what I'm doing for most people. And I'm just playing a standard 1-octave C major scale. So again, with the fingers, what I'm doing is I'm playing the lower note with the finger, the higher note with the slide. In this case, I'm playing 2 notes with the slide. So I'm basically trying to use the first finger, and notice it's the first finger only. This is a theme I'll keep coming back to, but in terms of arm health, I would recommend using your first finger only for this behind the slide stuff, and combining you know, your slide playing with normal stuff. There are exceptions which we'll look at as well, but in general you'll feel that it's just better for your arm, and you're likely to have less problems with injuries. So that would be a simple example. You just take a scale, it doesn't matter what the scale is, you could play a pentatonic, and just use your first finger for some of those notes. In this case it's pretty straightforward because there are 2 notes per string. You know, you can... So it's just kind of freeing up that finger. I think I didn't realize initially that it was okay to do that, and that, you know, I thought, well, when you got the slide on, you have to just use the slide and you're not allowed to use your fingers, but that's not the case at all. And obviously, you know, you want to be able to play chords with the fingers and do things with the slide. It can be quite nice to combine a bit of, you know, playing with your fingers and the slides. So just it's just a mindset, really, just, you know, deciding, oh, okay, it's okay to do both, and then just spending a bit of time trying to come up with you know, how you want to use the slide, how you want the guitar to speak when you add the slide into a phrase that you're playing. Notice in this case I am using other fingers because I'm thinking just like normal guitar stuff, although obviously I've only got these 3 fingers spare, really. I'm thinking normal guitar stuff and then adding a bit of slide to it as well. But if I were playing a scale or something, you know, some of this other stuff that we're going to look at, then I would still recommend just use that first finger. Okay, so now if we're playing chords or fragments of chords, double stops, intervals with the slide and the finger, then this is where that rule about the first finger really comes in. So I'm going to take the G major scale, play it in thirds on strings 2 and 3. So what's going on here? Well, what I'm doing is I'm playing with the slide, so I'm barring 2 strings. So in this case, if I were at the 4th fret, I'm barring at the 4th fret, and I'm using my first finger on the 2nd string just to depress the string. So what's happening is now the string is dropping below the slide, and we're hearing the note with the finger, not with the slide. So here's with the slide, here's with the finger. Okay, and notice, as I keep saying, I'm using my first finger for this. So there are, certain intervals that you can safely do. If I just do it from here, I can get a minor third there, major third, 4th, flat 5, 5th, up to a minor 6th, and then I start to struggle, and I think at that point that's where you shift, and instead of playing just on an adjacent string pair where the 2 notes are on the same pair of strings right next to each other, what we're going to do there is we're going to go to a non-adjacent set of strings. So this is the same thing, except that what we need to do here is we need to look at muting the string in between. So if I play a 6th, if I play a G and an E, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute the note in between the 3rd string with my first finger. So I'm on strings 2 and 4, and I'm muting string 3. My thumb is muting the lower strings, and I'm actually using my 3rd finger to mute the 1st string here. So I could, I'm able to play a pair of strings that are non-adjacent. And if I want to introduce the finger behind the slide, then, so here I'm going to play F sharp and D. It's the same deal, same right hand muting. So the note in between is muted with my first finger. So the difference here, whereas before we didn't need to do any muting between the strings that are being sounded, in this case with these double stops, what we're doing is muting the note in between with our first finger, thumbs on the lower strings, keeping everything quiet, and then I've got a spare 3rd and 4th finger that I could use on the higher strings as well. So what I would recommend you do with all this is you practice playing through scales and intervals. It's just such a great way of, there's a certain amount of ear training here to get these notes in tune. It's pretty challenging, and there's also just the physical stamina and technique that's required. You've got to take your time with this and be very mindful if your arm really starts hurting. I think I've said this before, but if your arm's aching a bit and a bit tired, that's not a disaster. But if it feels really different, or you get shooting pain or anything like that, you need to stop. And you need to let your arm rest. You can do serious injuries here. So my advice, and you'll see other people doing different things, but my advice is just to use that first finger for that extra note. So for compound intervals, things bigger than an octave, you need to do a double skipped string pair. So for instance, if I took G major in 10ths, what I'm doing here is I'm playing on strings 6 and 3. 2 strings in the middle that I need to mute. Now, I'm actually muting one of them with the left hand, and the slide isn't going right across, it's at a slight angle. But the main thing is I'm using my middle finger on string 3, my first finger on string 4 is muting, my thumb is playing the 6th string, my 3rd and 4th fingers are just resting on the top strings, just keeping them quiet. So I've got beautiful sound, and the thing about using the slide and a finger to play an interval is it sounds different. That if I do this with a finger, it has a particular sound, and it's great, but the intervals with the slide just have a richness. I like the fact you can add a little bit of vibrato with that slide. So this double skipped string pair idea is basically where the notes are spaced out so that you have two strings in between the pair of strings that you're going to use. And the muting is very important. You're going to use your middle finger on the higher note, your thumb on the lower note, and then your first finger is just going to mute that fourth string in this case, or the string below the higher note. So I could play it on higher strings. So if I want to play up here, so what I'm doing here is I'm muting mainly with the thumb. Again, it's a beautiful sound, and that first finger is basically playing the note that's behind the slide every time, whether it's higher than the note that you're playing with the slide or lower, it doesn't matter, that first finger's doing the work. So we looked at double stops. How about chords? What can we do with this with chords? So let's take, for instance, an E chord. I'm going to play just straight across at the 7th fret, just on the middle 4 strings. Okay, so that's an E11th chord, D over E. Now, if I put my first finger behind the slide 1 fret behind on string 4, I get an E9 chord. And if I drop it back 1 fret, I get an E minor 9 chord. So again, we get this kind of richness with the slide that you don't get if I just do that. It's a cool chord, but so if I'm playing a 2-5-1 in the key of D, I might do E minor 9, A7 sharp 5, and then maybe just D major 7th. So if I did a 1-6-2-5, I might go C major, A7 sharp 5, and then maybe a sneaky D13 flat 9, and then a G7, and then back to C major. So the thing here is to look at your chord shapes and try and find ways that you can make this work. So that was one way with 9th chords and minor 9th chords, but you could take a major 7th chord. If I took G major 7th, I could play G and the major 7th. I could even put the 3rd on top. I could play a minor 7 flat 5, so B minor 7 flat 5. E13 flat 9, A minor 7th, with a minor 6. So it's a case of just really trying to look at the chords that you have and figure out where you can get pairs of notes or a pair of notes and a double stop on top. You will have to strip down most of the chords into their component parts. So a really great exercise is actually just to look at the chords you have and find out what are the most important notes. In general, it's the 3rd and the 7th if you need to grab things. If it's just you on your own, well then you know you might need to put the root in as well. But you know, if I took a C major 7th chord again, the 3rd and the 7th are really the most important notes. Maybe if I do it in E and then you put that E bass note underneath, then that really gives you the sound and the character of the chord. So I would aim for the 3rd and the 7th, but you can do all sorts of things. You can add 9ths in, you can put the root in, you can miss out the root and grab more of the chord. So for instance, if I was going to play G major 7th, I could play it like this, you know, without the slide, or I could just focus on the top part and not worry about the bass. Now I could put that in if I want. You know, you can basically try and strip down your chords and not get so tied into having to play every single note and then trying to get the slide in as well. But you can have a lot of fun and come up with some beautiful sounds. Even that thing I did earlier with the tenths. There's such a richness to it, and you know, you almost don't need that extra stuff in. So it's really a case of just exploring and diving in. But I think if you understand the basic techniques involved here and what you can do with the finger and the slide, then you can take this in whatever direction you like. I can certainly do more content on this if people would like it, but this was intended as a starting point so that you can take the general concept and run with it. So I hope you have fun with that. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, subscribe, comment, let me know what else I can do to help. I think this behind the slide stuff is a really exciting area to get into, and I love being able to combine slide and fingers. Obviously I've done this in standard tuning this time, but I do it in open tunings as well. So have a lot of fun with this, and happy sliding.